And for more on this international manhunt, we're going to bring in international security analyst Sajjan Gohel. Welcome to our broadcast.
Pleasure.
How difficult will it be to track this man who allegedly has used 6 false names and several nationalities?
Well, it's going to be a challenge because it took some time for the German authorities to narrow down the person they believed was behind the Berlin Christmas market attack. Keep in mind also that Germany is part of the Schengen zone, which removes border restrictions. So Amri's had a head start. He may not even be in Germany. He may have traveled to a neighboring country, found a safe place to operate. There may be an an ISIS safe house that he could function in. This is now the challenge, and that is why the Germans issued a European-wide arrest warrant, because they are worried that this is going to be a much harder task than perhaps originally envisaged.
Well, he was certainly under surveillance for a while, and government authorities said they simply stopped watching him, as you know, because they were unable to prove that he was doing anything wrong. At this point, it's hindsight, but what more could they have done to prevent something like this, given the information they had?
Well, understandably, there is criticism of the German intelligence apparatus, but we also need to look at the German cultural aspects as well, because this is a country that still has that legacy of World War II and even the collapse of communism in Eastern Germany, and controlled very much by the intelligence agency, the Stasi, in which surveillance was rife. Germany has been very reluctant to look at surveillance in detail because they feel that they need to move in a different direction. And that legacy is actually hurt to some degree because the terrorists have been able to exploit it. Now, we should remember that the German intelligence agencies have been successful in disrupting al-Qaeda plots in the past and arresting members of ISIS. Unfortunately, in this case, there has been a lapse, and it's going to require further analysis to avoid something like this happening in the future.
His identification papers and his fingerprints discovered in that truck, it doesn't mean that he acted alone, but why would his papers be in the truck? And is a $100,000 reward significant enough in this case, do you think?
Well, the reward again illustrates the fact that the German authorities are depending largely on the public for information and support, that they themselves will not be able to do this on their own. And very often, these terrorists will leave information at the scene of the crime, which could be their ID, it could be telephone numbers, it could be something that allows the authorities to track them back. There's never such a perfect crime of terrorism where they are able to hide their identities. And I think largely Amri was probably intending to die in this plot. Now, for whatever reason, that didn't take place. There were no police at the scene when the truck crashed through the Christmas market, so he simply fled. But all ISIS terrorists that have perpetrated an attack very rarely then surrender. They tend to go out in a hail of bullets. And one fears that in the build-up to Christmas, there could be more security challenges ahead for the German authorities.
Interesting. ISIL, as you just said, claiming responsibility. What's the likelihood of them being behind this and of them striking again with over 2,500 markets open in Germany during the holiday season?
This is an important question that you raised, because only last week, a 12-year-old German national of Iraqi origin was arrested for intending to plant nail bombs at a Christmas marketplace in Ludwigshafen. And he was just 12 years old, and he had been groomed online by ISIS. So there is this problem, I'm afraid. And keep in mind that ISIS propaganda, such as the Rumaya magazine, specifically talks about using vehicles to target Christmas markets. It spoke specifically about Berlin. And in the case of Amri, the difference between him and all the other plots that have taken place in Germany this year is that in his case, it seems that it has a network in place. The others may have been inspired, self-starters. Amri is part of a network that is operating within Germany. And unfortunately, we don't know the full size and scope of that cell. So the worry is that this may not be a one-off.
Interesting. Sajjan Gohel, always good to see you. Thank you for joining us live from London.